Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, we're talking about microphones, lots of microphones. We even are talking with John Peluso, who owns and is the founder of Peluso Microphone Lab. He's going to tell us about the design of some of his microphones. It's all coming up next on TWiRT. This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support online at bgs.cc. By the Ruby console from Lawo. See Lawo in your future at lavo.com/TWiRT. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. And by the CalRec Type R console system. Type R is a brand new, modular, expandable IP-based radio system from CalRec Audio. Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone, how about this one, to the light bulb at the top of the tower. That almost looks like that color right there, bottom of the microphone. It's episode 453. I'm Kirk Harnack, and I'm coming to you again live from the Telos Alliance studio in Nashville, Tennessee. And what a great place to be. I appreciate the folks at Telos supplying some of the gear here for me, and also the time commitment to bring you this show every week. We try to have fun, but also educate ourselves and you about broadcast technology and really everything from the microphone to the light bulb at the top of the tower and so much stuff in between. Today, we've got a fun show. We're talking about microphones. Yeah, the first thing we mentioned in the slogan. And stay tuned, because in a few minutes after we introduce Chris, I'm going to tell you how you could win this microphone on the show today. We'll give it away before the end of the show. All right? But before we tell you how to do that, let's check in with Chris Tobin. Chris, welcome into the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. And yourself? Oh, look at that. I preset the shot for it later in the show. Let me do this. This should be fun. There we go. Look at that. Who knew? You
have a piano behind you. Are you in
yes, I do.
the performance space?
I'm in the performance space, and that is a Steinway B, 1980s, 1979 vintage, yes. And I have microphones at my disposal. I have 3 cases worth of microphones here.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, you've got some great show and tell for us then.
I thought that was awesome. The plan.
That is
our videos
awesome.
are going to be talking. The videos are going to talk about the design of a microphone, how you go about it, and the applications as well. And then we're going to show some actual real stuff that I have used and recordings that you can watch on our videos. The radio station video, that is not TWiRT.
Yeah, yeah. So this show's all about microphones. We'll, by the way, we usually talk at least for a sec about the weather. It has been wonderful here in Nashville. I mean, the relative humidity went down to 27% yesterday. And it is just delightful. The dew point has been in the lower 40s here, even though the temperature's been above 80. And actually, it was 2 days ago. Just absolutely beautiful. Good day to be outside and enjoy the outside. How about you? What you got up there in New York?
Here in New York, it's been very nice today and yesterday. The temperature has been in the 80s. But the dew point is just about 55, 60. So it's just above comfortable. It's been very nice. I just went outside for an ice cream cone, and I could say it's very nice. Very nice temperature.
Did you have to run down or hail the ice cream truck?
No. Thankfully, we have a small store just on the corner. It has a little freezer inside. You swing open the glass door. You grab what you like to eat. You put it back. You offer them some money, and off you go.
You know, our comedian we all like, Stephen Wright, said, yeah, in my neighborhood, the ice cream trucks played Helter Skelter. Awful. All right. The show's all about microphones. And let me just go ahead and tell you now, we're giving away this microphone. This is labeled Excelvon. There's a generic Chinese manufacturer who that makes these condenser mics. This is the BM, as in Broadcast Mic 8000. Broadcast Mic 8000. We've given away mics on the show before. It's been a while. It's been a good 2-3 years ago since we've done that. But I had this one, and this was a pretty interesting looking one with this design in the top. And we're gonna give this away on the show. Now here's how to do it. 2 ways. Send an email right now. Send an email to thisweekinradiotech@gmail.com. I'm monitoring the account right here on this computer. This Week in Radio Tech, all one word, obviously, at gmail.com. This Week in Radio Tech at gmail.com. And you obviously put your name in there. If your reply to address is something cryptic, let me know what your name is. Hey, you might even want to let me know where you're writing from. And if you want to say a word or two why you should win the mic, that's great. I am going to pick it at random. But it might be nice to know something about you. You don't have to put your address in there. We'll contact you and we'll get the shipping address. So email thisweekinradiotech at gmail.com or you can click the like button. And you know what? It'll work on it'll work on any of the feeds here because we're on Facebook Live. We're on the GFQ network page for Facebook Live with our Facebook Live feed. We're also on my personal page, Kirk Harnack, and we're also on This Week in Radio Tech Facebook page. So the feed is going out live on all three of those pages. You can click like on any of those or all of them if you like, if you want to triple double register. And there you go. We'll pick one at random to win this microphone at the end of the show. So like us. You know what? You could share us too. That would be really nice. You could share the live feed on your own page. And that we would love that. All right. 3 ways. This Week in Radiotech at gmail.com or like us on Facebook, this live feed that you may be watching right now. All right. We're going to come when we come back. I've got a collection of microphones here to show you, and we're going to save the best for last. So Chris is going to go at the end of the second interview because, interview, you say? What's coming up? Well, here's what's coming up. I met the most amazing people from a company called Peluso Microphone Lab. Peluso Microphone Lab. That's their website, long name, Peluso Microphone Lab, singular, .com. And John Peluso, obviously the owner and the genius behind the design of these microphones. I got to talk, the last Saturday, I got to sit down and talk with John Peluso and edited the interview together. It's about a 12-minute interview. And he's going to open up and show us the inside of some of these microphones. And some of them are newer designs and some are kind of replicas of classic mic designs. So he's going to show us the inside of a solid state condenser mic and a tube condenser mic as well. Plus, we're going to hear a little bit about ribbon mics. And then Chris Newitt with Peluso is going to be talking to us about some applications. I'm excited for you to hear these interviews. I've watched this over and over again and editing it, and I'm excited to watch it again. And Chris hasn't seen it yet, so he's going to watch as well. That's coming up. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with some show and tell on mics and with John Peluso in just a minute. Hang on.
Yo, what's up? Live from NAB 2018. Hey, it's Caden. You need to check out Wheatstone and VoxPro 7.1. The upgrades are amazing. If you're a jock, if you're a talent, producer, whatever, morning show, everyone knows VoxPro, everyone uses VoxPro, everyone loves VoxPro. But now the features for this year, 2018, on 7.1 are amazing. If you're using version 4.5.6 and you go to 7, this is exactly what you're missing right here. The features are a game changer. It's going to cut down your editing time by like 80% depending on what you use VoxPro for. And with version 7.1, introducing unlimited Practic button bars right here, hotkeys right here. I'm going to show you coming out of a song.
Bad things. It's a lot of bad things that they wish and I wish and I wish and I wish.
So you're coming out of your song?
Yeah.
Start your next song right here. It's basically an entire production room right on VoxPro. So it's the VoxPro we know and love with a ton more features. And now this is the ultimate game changer right here. Effect macros. So instead of hitting your effects button bar and going up here using your mouse for every effect, you do it right here with one click of the mouse, and you're going to cut down your editing time by about 80% without even touching this new sexy black controller. Check it out right here, Wheatstone VoxPro 7.1 at NAB in Vegas 2018.
And you know where you can get VoxPro? You can get it from Broadcasters General Store, BGS. Website is bgs.cc, or you can give them a call at 352-622-7700. That's 352-622-7700. They've got all kinds of cool stuff. The VoxPro, of course, they got all the gear from my employer, the TELUS Alliance, and there's some of them right there. Cool stuff. And you call there and talk to any of the wonderful people at Broadcasters General Store. Appreciate them sponsoring the show. All right, I'm going to do a little show and tell. Chris, I need your help. Chris, I want you to let's play a game.
Let's play a game. I'm going to show you a microphone, Chris. You tell me what it is, and maybe we can talk about what's the best application for such a microphone. Okay.
Sure.
We're going to start with an easy one, Chris. What is this?
It's an attempt at making a microphone, but it's okay. It's RE27 Electro Voice. I have a couple of those. I'm not showing them today. We have used them a couple of times at the request of some artists. It's a good vocal mic. It's a good percussion mic too. You could use it for loud sounds. It's the it was a successor to the RE20. It's designed slightly different than the RE20. So I know a lot of folks say, "Oh, it's an RE20 gold-looking case." It's like, no, it's definitely different and improved and a different approach. And I think our guests in the upcoming video will explain the differences in the way microphones are designed and built and why you do it the way you do. But it's a nice microphone. It's very handy. We use it here a lot.
It's very common in radio broadcast. That's for sure. It has a classic look. So it does well on camera to let the viewers know there's a microphone right there.
Yes, it also has a bit of a peak. It's a little bright. It's got a bright sound.
Yeah,
so a lot of radio stations like that.
It's called the 27ND, I think, because the magnet is a neodymium magnet.
Yes, EV makes a few of those neodymium.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I have one here. Yeah, the NVD, the bass drum mic.
Okay.
Magnet. Yeah.
Well, now, some people really love this microphone. I think people love this microphone mostly because they're very familiar with it, because a lot of disc jockeys have used it for years. They haven't necessarily ABC compared it with other mics. Not saying it's a bad mic. It's so ubiquitously standard. Nobody ever got fired for buying one of these mics.
That's just true. This is true. Well, it's funny. I remember years ago with the RE20 at many stations I worked at, it changed. They were changing it over time as they were making new ones, and I think they were looking to slowly phase it out to the RE27 series and all the newer stuff that came out with the NDs. But the funny thing was, I remember talking with a jock, and he was like, "Oh man, I love the way this RE20 sounds, but I don't know why I can't make it sound like this at my studio at home." And I was talking to a friend of mine who's since retired from the business, but back when I was still learning and he was my mentor, I said to him, I said, I'm still trying to understand, why does it sound different on our station than it does at his home studio for the voice tracking or the voice artist work he does. And my buddy's like, "Oh, it's real simple. Because of the clipping we do and the amount of clipping, it actually causes third harmonics to come back into the audio range. So we have to squash the audio, raise the treble, and that microphone has a peak in it." So he goes, "You don't notice it, but we're clipping the hell out of the audio, so we lose high end. And this comes right in and makes a nice fat sound because of it. Because you go home, unless you're doing the clipping and processing, you won't hear the same thing." And I looked at him like, no way. So I started researching it, and years later, sure enough, there was some truth to that, because nowadays in the digital world, our clipping techniques are very different. They're very clean. They're very straightforward. They're very precise. Not like the old days of clipping, as all of you remember. And the same microphones sound very different now.
In fact, we get a little bit of talk about that very topic of clipping before versus now from John Peluso in our interview, coming right up in a couple minutes. All right. You should be able to recognize this mic pretty well. You address it from the end, not the side. And this is one of my favorite mics in the world. I love this mic.
Yes, it was a PR40. I have that right?
Yeah, I'll turn it around.
A Heil mic. Yeah, we have. I use that. Yep, we use that in our voice booth, and it works out very nicely. Bob's approach to microphone design is very unique, in the sense that he really takes the care and understanding, the voice, the way the voice sounds, as far as the reproduction, how to keep all the nuances in place, but then lets you work the microphone so you can really play with your voice. If you're really good at vocal control, that microphone brings out everything. It's just fascinating the way he's done it. And the directionality of it too is great too.
I would agree. It's got the preciseness in many ways of a condenser mic, even though it is a dynamic mic. It requires no phantom power. You're talking to the end of it, not the side. Some people think you do, because it rejects off the side. Bob has designed this thing to reject off the side really well. And I've done this before on the show years ago when I started using this mic. I talked to it this way, and then I turned it to the side, and I just went away, almost completely went away. Love that mic. Also, this mic, I think, is very kind to male voices. So if you are a male voice, the Heil PR40 could be for you, because it really has a nice bass bump there that makes you sound, good, real good. All right, let's go with the mic that's in front of you, Chris. I've seen that mic before, but I'm sorry, I don't know what it is. Talk to me about that one real quick.
This is a Neumann. It's a Neumann KMS 105. It is a condenser mic. It's a very popular vocal mic. We use it a lot for the artists, for the soloists, and we use it for the announcers as well during the interviews here in the performance studio. It's a very, very versatile mic. You can even use it on instruments and everything else. It has a nice, very transparent sound. If there's any coloring at all, it's not even noticeable. It has a sound to it you have to hear it. You really have to hear it in a complex arrangement. I know a lot of people take a microphone. Hello, testing 1 2 3 1 2 3. That's not the way to do it. The way to test the microphone is in an active environment. What I like to call a complex audio environment. And once you do that, you discover the real performance of the microphone. It really. And here in the studio, we do recordings with artists from percussion. We have drum sets, we have organs, we have piano behind me, vocalists as well, solo singers and groups. We listen solo out on the mixing desk, all the channels, listen to the individual microphones, and on more than dozens of occasions, the microphones on the drum set, listening to the snare, the kick, the overhead, the hi-hats, cymbals, by themselves individually, something doesn't sound right. You're like, what is? We've had bass. We have bass players come here too, so we have a direct out input, the DI, and the acoustic pickup as well. And we listen to it separately, and it just doesn't sound right. And our guy, the recording engineer, sitting goes, something wrong. I don't think this mix is going to work. I said, no. Let's have some fun with this. Just mix everything as you hear it. Just roll with it. And sure enough, after the session, we go back and listen, and it's like, man, you had no idea this thing was independently. They sounded like something was wrong. But when they were all playing together and the little bit of leakage and the way the harmonics and everything works, there's the science of audio, the science of miking. That's part of it. I'm not going to say if you buy Neumanns only, you'll have the best sound. I'm not saying if you buy AKG or Heil or anything, you have the best sound. You get the best sound from the microphone and its application, understanding that this may not work for a kick drum, but this does. But this is an EV. This is a Neumann. Doesn't matter. It's the application. So we have found on many occasions what people would say, traditionally we use this type of microphone. And we go, it didn't work. We use this other one. It's a ribbon. It actually worked better. And like, what? And when the musicians hear the playback of the session, the look on their face, right away, okay, we definitely hit a nerve that's positive because the look on your face is very happy.
All right, let's look at this one. What is that, Chris Tobin?
That looks like a Countryman.
You are right. That's a Countryman.
Very popular.
Now, Chris, I have actually never used this on stage yet. I bought it a long time ago to use for stand-up talks in front of a crowd. I don't always like what I hear from other people using a Countryman mic, although it's effective, you can hear it, but it's not necessarily a pretty sound. Do you have any comments about a Countryman, how to make it sound good? What's the right application other than a motivational speaker on stage, someone giving a preacher giving a sermon, or somebody talking with a public address system?
Well, I've used Countryman products a lot. Matter of fact, we have a lot of their the DIs here. I've always enjoyed the Countryman products because they are designed again specifically to do a certain technique, certain style, and the headset piece. I know there's a name for that particular one, but I've never had a problem with the way they sound. What I have discovered, and it's about, again, a microphone is a pressured device, and if you're going to put it to the side of someone's mouth, and the voice may not have the bass in it that you may hear, like my voice, I know does not have bass, but when I put it through certain microphones, it sounds very different. I'm like, well, that's not me. But then you can EQ it and change it some more. So those microphones, when you put them in the proximity as close as they are, you sort of have to play with them a bit. But the nice thing about them is because they're transparent, you can really make them sound good. I mean, really good.
Okay.
Out of the box, in some conditions, it may not sound right. But this also goes to the, again, application. But your mic preamp is key. Not every mic preamp is made the same. And a lot of microphones, their impedance, the source impedance on the XLR, depending on the type you have, or a Nemo connector, the mic preamp may not give it justice. It may be a roll-off. There's a lot that goes into understanding all the nuances of a microphone. And I've had the pleasure of working with some really, really good recording engineers. And one of the guys I worked with last year at a Charlie Parker Festival, we got talking about some stuff, and the things he explained to me, he's a Grammy Award winning recording engineer for some of the top jazz artists. So pick a name, and Motown is one of his other people that he's worked with. Yes, so I listened to some of the things he talked about, explained, and it was like, oh, I get it. And we here have API preamps and Millennia and a few others, and we've played with them at different microphones. Sure enough, some mics don't play well with every preamp we have. We have to move them around. It's fascinating. So the Countryman product is excellent. I've used it. I enjoy it.
Oh, good.
I'm not endorsing
Good to hear.
I'm not saying I'm endorsing it, but it's you have to understand how to use it. That's the key. I mean, you can make this microphone, the 105 that I have in my hand here, sound really bad. You plug it into a preamp that can't handle the output of this microphone, and somebody will swear the microphone's in trouble. And it's like, no, it's the preamp. Trust me, I've been there. I've worked with folks that are like, there's something wrong. RE20s or an SM7, right? Those are dynamic mics, but they're high output microphones. You put them in front of a preamp that can't handle the high peak energy. They'll make a RE20 or 27 sound bad.
Now that we've talked about just a small variety of microphones, and you've got more to show, let's go ahead and get to the meat of today's show. A real pleasure to sit down and talk with John Peluso of Peluso Microphone Lab, and you're going to like this interview. I hope you do, as much as I enjoyed meeting the guy. And right after this, we'll have a quick break, and we're then going to hear from Chris Newitt. We'll introduce him, but let's go to John Peluso right now. Hi, it's Kirk Harnack, and I'm here with John Peluso of Peluso Microphone Lab. We're talking about the amazing design and technology that goes into high-quality recording microphones. John, welcome in. How are you?
I'm great this morning.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
We met a couple days ago at a little soiree for NAMM, right? And you were there. I met some of your people, and we're going to talk to them too. But your company does microphones. Tell me about Peluso Microphone Lab.
Well, I've been servicing microphones for nearly 50 years, and see all the potential defects and design flaws in a lot of the vintage microphones. Of course, they were great at the time, but technology has changed. So the cost of manufacturing has changed.
As great as we know that old microphones are, we've actually learned some things since the 1940s, 50s, 60s.
We sure have, and the old microphones age. Plastic gets brittle, falls apart, the components fail, and new components are slightly different. They have faster speeds because everything's designed for a high-speed world these days. Transistors are faster, capacitors are smaller or larger, depending on what you're looking to replace. So being able to repair these antique mics is getting harder and harder. So we decided to build a line of microphones that is not only extremely well built, and extremely serviceable, using all through-hole components that are readily available at any electronics supply.
Now, your mics typically are used in recording applications, professional high-end recording, yeah?
That's correct.
And so
broadcast.
As such, most of them are condenser designs, but you also have some ribbon designs?
We have 3 ribbon microphones that are basically very similar to each other. They use the same ribbon motor assembly. We have a passive ribbon, which is basically a motor assembly and a transformer going to the output. Then we have a ribbon that has a tube amplifier that brings it closer volume-wise to a condenser, not quite as loud as a condenser. And then we have a stereo passive ribbon that works great for orchestral recording, drum overheads.
So John, let's look at the inside of one of your microphones and see what are the components inside one of these.
Well, we start with the capsule, and that's our source, and it's a condenser diaphragm with high voltage polarization on the back plate. Generally, we have the front plate grounded so that it doesn't attract dust. And it goes into an impedance converter, which is, in this mic, being an 87 style mic, is a single FET. To achieve polar patterns, we swap the phase of the back plate on an 87 in relation to the front plate. So that allows us to get the 3 polar patterns that this microphone has. And our basic design philosophy is total repairability. So we use off-the-shelf parts that any engineer can buy at a local.
I would imagine one of the key components is that FET.
The FET is a very special FET we have made for us that is laser trimmed, so it doesn't require individual resistor trimming for every microphone. And these things are laser trimmed within 0.1% of each other.
I feel like I need to show my street cred. That's field effect transistor is what that is. Yeah. And are they really different now than they were when? How did they do this with condenser mics when those were invented? They didn't have FETs then. They had tubes. Right?
They had tubes, yeah. So the impedance converter would be a vacuum tube, and that vacuum tube is, brand new, is going to work fine.
So after the FET stage, what's the next stage before this transformer?
The FET literally drives the transformer.
Oh, it does. Okay.
The rest of this is just for the filtering for voltages, taking the phantom power and providing it at almost full voltage to the back plates of the capsule for polarization.
So when you say high voltage polarization, you're talking about 48 volts?
Yes, 48 volts.
Okay.
Our tube mics polarize at 120 to 180 volts.
Do they have an external power supply? Or is
Yes.
Okay.
They would use an external power supply providing filament voltage and high voltage for the plate of the amplifier and polarization of the capsule.
How critical is the 48 volts? In other words, I've seen some phantom circuits that were much lower than 48.
Well, in a microphone like this, it doesn't have a DC to DC converter. 48 volts is very critical.
Okay.
This microphone will run down to about 24 volts before it shuts itself off. But you lose a lot of noise performance.
Now, you have quite a few microphones in your line that have the same basic shape. They have a large area for the electronics, and they have a condenser capsule on the top. What differentiates different models that are condenser, have roughly the same shape of the body? What's the difference in these different mics?
The difference is we make, in this particular body shape, we make a solid state version, which is the 87, and we make a tube version, which is the 67, which was the predecessor to this microphone.
Well, I can't help but notice this other microphone looks quite a bit different on the inside. Tell me what's going on here.
Yeah, this is our tribute to the famous Neumann U47, which was one of the first readily available high-quality condenser mics. It came to the market in the U.S. in the early 50s. And it uses one of the particular characteristics of an original 47 is a steel envelope tube. And steel envelope tubes have a wonderful second harmonic content that adds a musicality to the sound. Where other tubes, glass tubes, don't have that rich harmonic content. They're cleaner, they're more pristine. But we're trying to replicate a microphone from the 50s. We want it to sound like a 50s microphone.
I find it pretty interesting that a lot of the electronics that were developed in the 40s, 50s that used tube technology, it's such a happy happenstance that the technology they were using does have a musicality to it anyway.
Yes.
What a happy coincidence that they weren't fighting some of the problems that maybe we fight now with solid state, that a lot of the components that they chose and used, and I'm thinking about even things like a Teletronics compressor. A lot of happy circumstances there that people find very appealing.
Yes, yes. And even more so when solid state circuits came into being, because the early solid state was very hard sounding.
Right.
Distortion was flat. at the top one. But when tubes distort, they tend to just widen the top of the waveform and it's still round. So that's creating, nice even second harmonics, where if it goes flat like in a solid state device, that's creating harsh third harmonics.
Let's talk for a second about manufacturing. I know that so many microphones today, even high-end microphones, they have a formula for producing them, and they're produced in factories according to a formula that seems to have worked for them. Your assembly or your manufacturing technique is a little bit different than a lot of the mass-produced mics, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's each capsule is hand-tuned by us. Each circuit board is hand-stuffed by one of the three of us, and it's all anechoically tested at the end. Every microphone, every microphone is anechoically tested. We don't actually have an anechoic chamber, but we have a time domain spectrometer, which I like to call my time machine, and it only hears the exact frequency at the exact microsecond it's hitting the diaphragm. So it ignores everything else in the room. And this technology was developed by NASA to make anechoic measurements on things too large to put in a chamber, like the space shuttle.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, if there's one more thing you could tell us before we finish up here, I understand that you had some inspiration and maybe some information passed along from an engineer.
With a physicist engineer, Werner Ruwalds, and he was a physicist at Neumann during World War II, while George Neumann was developing NiCad batteries. The SS took him from his home in Latvia and brought him to Berlin and put him in Neumann to develop microphones that sound natural for all the broadcasts. And I ran a stereo mastering lab, Chicago Stereo Mastering, for him. And he would come after he was brought here under Operation Paperclip, which brought scientists and engineers and physicists from Germany after the war, and placed in Shure Brothers to work on tape heads, which he was also an expert in.
Wow.
And the U.S. was, at that time, very interested in the tape recording technology and how to improve it and move from wire recorders to tape recorders. So he would come back after his shift at Shure Brothers and he would want to talk about microphones. And at the time, I was fairly fluent speaking and reading in Germany. Unfortunately, most of that goes away if you don't use it for 40 years, but I can still read German. So he would bring his Neumann design manual in, which I still have, and his data, all in German, and we would talk about it. He would talk about what's important and what isn't important in designing a capsule and in designing a microphone. And I spent 2 years, 6 or 8 hours a night sitting around listening to him.
So it looks as though his technology and research, plus your own knowledge and desire to, be true to some original designs, but also use modern improvements. That's working out pretty well for Peluso Mic Lab.
It is. Yeah, it was. It was one of those lucky happenstances to be in the right place at the right time.
John, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I appreciate it very much, explaining these microphones and the technology.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, this is the microphone we're giving away. I thought I'd plug it in and give it a try, and it really did work. That was my fault for not unmuting. So we usually mute during our interviews, so I can make noise in here. Hey, tell you what, if we're giving away this microphone on the show today, and the easiest way to enter, I think the easiest way to enter is to just send me an email. Send an email to thisweekinradiotech@gmail.com. thisweekinradiotech@gmail.com. We've already gotten a bunch of entries. You can get in there too. You can also enter for this giveaway today just by, if you're watching us on Facebook Live, just click the like button. Doesn't matter if you're watching it at the GFQ network page or on my personal page, Kirk Harnack, or on This Week in Radio Tech's page. But hey,
And you can do both. Send us an email at thisweekinradiotech@gmail.com. If you want to tell me a little story about why you want the mic, hey, that'd be fine too. But we will pick that at random. Hey, we're going to be right back. The interview with John Peluso, really interesting about the design of microphones. I didn't know that about metal body tubes. Chris and I will talk about that after our next interview. But right now, let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
TWiRT is CalRec's first native IP-based mixing console. It is fully AES-67 and NMOS ISO4 and ISO5 compatible as defined by SMPTE 2110. Connectivity via Cat5e utilizing COT switches and power to the surface is supplied via standard PoE switches to minimize cabling. Its 2U core has integrated I/O, so you're instantly up and running, and it can power up to 3 independent mixing environments, each with their own separate DSP resources. TWiRT's surface is modular and expandable, consisting of 3 slimline panels, each of which are user-definable with layouts saved and recalled quickly between shows. It's available in 4 DSP packs, and as your station grows, larger packs can be added, making TWiRT the most flexible radio console you can buy. Find out more at calrec.com/TWiRT.
And thanks a lot to CalRec for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Go to calrec.com/TWiRT. Hey, studio guests are only human, and humans, well, they cough and they sniff and they clear their throats, even on the air. You can cure this with the Angry Audio Guest Gizmo. You press the cough button and you mute the mic. Every guest needs one. You know what else they need? Headphones, which is why each guest gizmo has a studio-quality headphone amp with individual volume control. Anything else? You've seen those mic arms that have the built-in LED tallies? They're beautiful, but how do you get them to light up? Well, the Guest Gizmo does that too. It illuminates the red light whenever the mic is hot. And installing the Guest Gizmo in your studio furniture couldn't be easier. You just need a 2 3/4-inch hole saw and a steady hand. No router required. Your studio gets a clean, custom appearance, and you get all the credit. Check out the Guest Gizmo and all the cool gadgets at angryaudio.com. That's angryaudio.com. Thanks a lot to both CalRec and Angry Audio for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, thanks a lot for letting me know about that. We're talking about studio microphones here. And Chris, let me get your quick thoughts about John Peluso. It was a pleasure to meet him. What do you think about what he had to say?
Oh, I think it was great. Everything he spoke about, I've read the stories. I've read the technology and the physics behind it. Boy, I'd love to try his microphones out here in this studio. I mean, that sounds like he's got it really, some thought has been put into his design. I love the story with the Neumann engineer, the physicist. I think that's great.
Yeah. So next we're going to hear from a Peluso family member. Now this guy married into the family. This is Chris Nuit. I got to sit down after I talked to John. I sat down and talked to Chris Nuit. Now Chris doesn't have the decades of experience that John does, but Chris has been brought along and is learning a lot about the right application for microphones. So we're going to hear from Chris Nuit right now. So let's hear from Chris. We're talking with Chris Newitt now of Peluso Microphone Lab. Hey, Chris, welcome in.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And so you are the applications guy. You understand where to use the right microphone, yeah?
Well, I'm doing my best. Okay. I am really the apprentice in the shop. John is obviously our senior partner and my stepdad. We're a family business. And I have been with him for 10 years and working with the Mic Lab. And I've been trying to learn everything I can in that time.
So in broadcasting, where a lot of our listeners and viewers are in, sure, 95% of the application is just voice, a person in a room with a microphone. And we have a lot of mics. I guess we use a lot of dynamic mics in that application, some condenser mics. But some broadcast engineers are called upon to record live bands, live groups going on. Also, there's round tables of several people going on. A lot more radio stations now are doing, they have a performance space. like an inexpensive recording studio. Actually,
Sure. You're going to have the bands are going to come in. They're going to drop by and they're like, "Hey, we're going to play a couple songs," or someone will show up with their guitar, and yeah. So you need to have an impromptu recording session in there.
So give us a quick primer, if you will, on how to choose the right mic for the job. We might start with a singer. So let's say we have some people who are singing. What are some parameters I should understand about that?
Well, for singing, a nice large diaphragm condenser, you can't go wrong with a great condenser like that. And if you're in the studio, you might be trying to select just the perfect mic for the voice. But if you have your radio set up, you might just have something like an 87, a very, very traditional studio workhorse microphone. It would be great on almost any singer. And it's also great for broadcasting. Most of NPR uses 87 style microphones, and so a mic like that is great for singing and for broadcast and for voice.
John mentioned earlier that the 87 mic has 3 different polar patterns. How would an engineer? What's a rule of thumb for picking the right polar pattern for a voice performance?
Well, polar pattern kind of has to do with what you're hearing, what the microphone is hearing. If you have the 2 sides of the capsule in phase with each other, we'll pick up everything all the way around. If the 2 sides of the capsule are out of phase with each other, anything that is equal to both sides of the capsule will be rejected, and anything that is on one side of the capsule will be accepted. Okay. So if I'm on the side, you're not going to hear me. Right. If I'm in the front, you're going to hear me great. And that is a great tool, because with that you can reject part of the room. You can have this microphone pick up the voice, but not pick up the instrument. Or if I don't want to hear you, I could be here, and then you hear me, but you don't hear you. And then you can do kind of a split, which is the cardioid pattern, where you'll hear a lot in the front and not much in the back. And that's kind of the cardioid is a very common pattern in most microphones, which normally ride in. Okay.
I always think of condenser mics as being very precise and in a circular pattern, pick up everything in the room really well. Yes. May or may not be what I want. Compare that with a ribbon mic. Now, actually, that was the first mic I used at the tender age of 15, getting started in radio, a DX77 from RCA. But you've got a ribbon mic right here. Tell me about it.
Well, and with a ribbon mic, it's going to be native, and naturally it's going to be in a figure-8 pattern, because it's a ribbon suspended in a microphone, or within a magnet. And so the magnet is on either side of the ribbon, and the ribbon is suspended between it. And the movement of the magnet within the magnetic field creates an electric current. Right. And that's what drives the whole microphone. So if we're to the side, you're not going to pick up anything. And if you're on the front, you'll pick up.
So what kind of applications is a ribbon mic more suited for? What instruments or what application?
It gives a very smooth sound. I mean, the thing is, you can use any mic on any application. But like a small diaphragm mic is really quick, great for strings. Whereas a ribbon makes a great room mic. It's great on drums. It's great on. It can be used on voice. You can use it on any application, and so it becomes a matter of taste a lot of times, depending on where you would like to.
The kind of mic that we see most often in our world, and as a young boy, I remember watching. And you're too young to remember this, probably. The Tom Jones Variety Hour, or whatever it's called, and the first thing you see was a close-up of the microphone, and then Tom's hand with a big old ring would grab that microphone, and he'd start singing. It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. So the classic handheld microphone. Tell me about Peluso's take on this.
All right, now this is a little different than the classic handheld microphone, because this one is actually a large diaphragm condenser microphone.
Oh, really?
And so what we've done here is we've taken a large diaphragm. It's got a 1-inch diaphragm condenser, and this piece is suspended between 2 silicone discs within here, and that gives a shock mounting. So when that person's holding it, this isn't getting ring. When that ring is tapping on the side, you're not going to hear that as much, because it's got that shock mount on the inside.
And of course, we can see the condenser's mounted this way.
So it's end address as opposed to the side address, which you would normally see on a condenser. It's only one diaphragm in this microphone, so there's not variable polar pattern settings that you can get inside of this one. And then it's got, this particular mic has a pad you can use. You use the pad, it lowers the gain down. It would match more.
So for Tom Jones, you'd pad it down.
You better pad that down. Yeah. And then it would match a dynamic mic that everybody's familiar with. It also has high-end and low-end roll-off switches, so you can kind of attenuate the high-end or the low-end. And depending on what room you're in or the characteristics of the person's voice, you might want to do that.
I noticed something really significant here. These switches are all inaccessible to the average user.
They will not be accidentally switched while the mic is in use, being that they're underneath the head grill. So,
that is.
You take it apart, you set it, but they're all right there to be
as
adjusted.
a broadcast engineer, I'm loving that.
What's this switch doing?
And this is a phantom-powered microphone, right?
Yeah, it takes 48 volt.
So it doesn't require an external power supply. It's just normal phantom power.
Normal phantom power. Yeah.
Cool.
So if it was running wireless off a dongle, the dongle would have to provide the 48 volt.
Chris, if people want to see videos of your mics in use, I think your website's a good place to go.
You can start at our website, PelusoMicrophoneLab.com.
PelusoMicrophoneLab.com. I'll put in the lower third here.
You can find us on Facebook. You can find us a YouTube channel. Just search Peluso Microphone Lab.
Chris Newitt, thanks very much for being with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us in today.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right, that was Chris Nuit with Peluso Microphone Lab with some application ideas. And hey, it's Kirk Harnack and Chris Tobin. We're talking about microphones, studio microphones, on This Week in Radio Tech, episode 453. And I just want to remind you, we are giving away this microphone on the show today. If you're watching live, great. If you're watching a recording of this, sorry, you're out of luck. Maybe you'll watch live next time, because I think we got a few more mics to give away over the next few weeks. So this one, send us an email to thisweekinradiotech@gmail.com. If you haven't done that, just type one out, thisweekinradiotech@gmail.com, or click like on the Facebook Live feed. Chris, you know, what Chris Newitt had to say kind of goes along with a lot of what you were saying. Now it's time for you to do some show and tell and show us the microphones that you use in the performance studio at WBGO. So you've got a lot of experience in miking various instruments and voices. Yeah.
Yes, we've done a lot. I mean, boy, I can't even begin to tell you all of them, but if you watch the videos online, you'll see it's pretty cool, the things we've done. So let's see. We have here a Sennheiser microphone. It's a condenser. It's the MKH40 P48, and I'll show it this way. See, can you see it? Do I have to zoom in? Maybe I should zoom in a little bit just for fun. All right, let's do this. And we use this a lot on acoustic instruments. We had with us today, last week, was it? An Argentinian accordion player. And we had both of these. We have two of these microphones. They were behind me on shock mounts on either side of the accordion. So if you're familiar with the way accordion works, you know, you open it up from left to right. So we had the recording on that. That was with Veronica Swift. I'm sorry, not Veronica Swift. That was, what's his name? Oh, can't think of his name now. But it was pretty wild. And then Veronica Swift, who was previously the week before, sang into one of these microphones, the 105 that I have here. So that's what we got. Now, for the acoustic stuff, and a lot of times people ask, you know, what do you do with a kick drum? RE20s are very popular. SM7s you can use, but this is EV, and this one is the NV and the ND868, very popular kick drum, and we use this a lot for kick drum use, and you could just imagine why. It has a very nice flat sound, and it does exactly what you need for that punch, for that sound that you want. So it's pretty cool, and that's that one there. And then there's the classic. Everyone's seen these at some point if they're traveling around. This is the AKG 414 series. Let's see, this is the 414B, or C414B, I should say. And it has the colored front. This one has gold. We have a pair of them inside the piano that we use for recording the strings. They have the silver front. But and this has the button, the selection, the pattern selection on the front. So, you know, for those of you who like to play with buttons, you can do that on this AKG. Well, that's as we have a couple of these. It's a pretty cool microphone. So, and traditionally, typically, the logo of the manufacturer of the microphone is the front. So, if you're placing this in the piano, you put it like that, so the strings are beneath. If you do it like this, you'll be listening to the reflections off the top of the piano cover. So, I've had people ask that question, like, how do you know? So this is, I'm just letting you know. And let's see what else we have in this box. Oh, yeah, we have our traditional shotgun microphone. This is a standard shotgun.
By the way, you mentioned that you want to talk into or have the music go into the side with the logo. That would be typical. If a microphone is set up in a figure 8 pattern, I guess it wouldn't matter which side it goes in, but one side will be the phasing will make a difference in some applications, right?
I have tried using figure 8 microphones for some vocal stuff, but very rarely a single vocalist on a figure eight makes any sense. Typically, I have seen audio recordings. People that do radio theater use a figure eight mic and put two people on either side for their scripting, for their talking, so they have that.
Yeah.
They can talk back and forth. But solo wise, I don't think. No, we haven't done that. Figure eight does have a place, but not in what we're doing. We don't use it often. Hang on, I just dropped the microphone. That's okay. It's mechanical. Can handle it. Put it back in its case so I don't forget where it goes. And let's open up the other microphone box we have. Yes, I have several cases of microphones. It's best to always travel with them properly packaged. Trust me, you don't want a condenser mic or even dynamic mic bouncing around in a box, and all of a sudden you open it up, you take out the mic, and you hear clanking. You're like, oh, the dynamic element now is part of a rotating piece. So we have the traditional. Everyone recognizes this, right? You can't miss this. You see this on the road all the time. The SM57. This too is very handy. Nice snare mic. We use this for the snares. It has a nice snap to it. It's a dynamic mic. So because on a snare drum, if you could take my index finger, for those who are watching, but listen carefully, the index finger pointing away from your body would be the rim of the snare drum, right? The top of the rim. You place the microphone just past your finger, so it just is above the skin, and that's where it gets the snare sound. Or for some phasing and interesting sound effects, you can place it beneath. And there's a whole nother series of recording techniques when you place it beneath and on top. But we're not going to get into that today. Yep. And then we have, where's our other one we use for the hi-hats? Did I have it in here? Oh, yes, here it is. This one we've discovered works the best. We have used other ribbons, but this is the Beyer Dynamic. This is the 160. Yep, this is the 160. Very nice microphone. We use this on the hi-hats on both sides of the cymbals. Hi-hats and cymbals on a drum set. And we've discovered that this microphone has a nice sound to it with all the other parts of the drum kit playing. So between this and the SM57 and then the kick drum microphone, and we've got a few other things we play with, we can create some really nice recordings, and we have. So that's that kit. That's several other mics in here, but those are the things we have to worry about. Oh, no, then we have the little Neumanns. These guys, the KM184s, we use these occasionally for also wind instruments. We could use it on bass. We've used string instruments. I'm sorry. I think we've used this primarily with drum kits. So it's come in handy. But again, we interchange. Our recording engineer, Corey, is very creative and thinks way out of the box at times with trying microphones on different scenarios and arrangements with artists. So if the artist is willing to go for it, we'll try something different, because a lot of times they'll come in and go, well, we'd like this particular mic model on this instrument because that's how we feel it works. And we go, yeah, that is traditionally how it's done, but we've discovered that this particular DPA actually works better in this environment. Like, really? We try it out, do a quick sound check, play back the recording. Sure enough, they most times will say, let's go with it. And we've been very fortunate to try it out. You have to. It's the music is about making you feel good. It's about the rhythm.
Yes,
Without the rhythm, there's nothing to it. So the microphone has to recreate or capture. We as in the business in post-production, you call it capturing. We're capturing a sound. We're capturing a recording, capturing the artist on stage. So you have to capture what they're creating. And the more true to life that you can capture, the better the translation. At the end of the day, the artist gets what they want. The audience feeling how they should if they were in the live audience. And we do in this performance space have members who come in and participate as an audience. So they get to actually feel it, see it, and go home and listen to it again and go, wow, and know the difference. It's pretty cool. And then there's the horn mics. We use this for saxes and trumpets. And this is, this is the Neumann, the TLM series, TLM 170. Put that everybody knows this microphone. Let me give you a little dimension here. Look, there you go. You put it like that, and then the trumpet, the horn, the bell housing is pointing right at it. And Ted Nash was here. He played into one of these with his trumpet, his sax. And we have a good time with these. We use these a lot. So we have this one, the 170. We also have this is the 103s. The 103s. Now, both microphones, though they look very much the same, and they are manufactured by the same company, Neumann, do have a different way of capturing audio. So we have discovered on some instruments, one is a better choice than the other. Both sound great, but you hear a little difference, a little nuance. It's positive nuance. It's not a negative. So you could use either one, it won't matter. But if you're working with the artist and you listen to how they play, what we do a lot here at the studio, before a recording, we'll do a couple of sound checks. If the artist is up for it. They usually are. And we are a recording engineer, myself, and one other person will be in the room here, in the studio, letting them play. And we listen to the instrument. We hear it in real time, if you will, in person. And then we go to the control room. They do a second sound check, and then we listen to it coming through the electronics, if you will. And that's how we try and mix and match the microphones to what we're capturing to create the most realistic studio environment sound we can. So when you hear it on the radio, a lot of the interviews go on the radio or on the stream. And if you watch the videos, the sound is as close as it could be if you're here in the room. That's what we do with all the stuff we got going on. And those are some of the microphones. We do have a few 87s laying around that we use in the Air Studios. What else do we have? We got a couple RE20s. Oh, we got a whole box full of SM58s because we do have some vocalists who prefer that. And we also use the SM58 on certain high, very loud instruments. Folks that come in and really bang on the drums, or sometimes we have bongo players. We have a tap dancer in, and we use them for the tap. Actually, it sounded pretty good. It was surprising, yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of different folks coming through.
Yeah. And
it's good stuff. It seems like it's good stuff.
Choosing which microphone to use when there's subtle differences could be a very time-consuming process. I guess at some point, if say, "Yep, we're happy with that," or and you probably, like you said, some artists will have their preference, whether or not it's the best. It's what they want, and if you've got it, well, that's okay.
Well,
give them what they want.
I mean, no, I don't get me wrong. We don't try to tell the artists to use something different because we think it's better for their choice. We know what they want. We know their sound. We know how they work. We've been doing this for 40 years. We know the sound. We just try to say, hey, we heard on your last album you went this direction with your studio recording, so we're curious. Are you interested in trying it this way? And they'd be like, okay. And we use their stuff. I mean, most of the times they come in and say, hey, what do you guys got? And we look at it. And as long as they see this, says it's either you have a Neumann, AKG. What was the other one that we had here? The EVs, and there was some other microphone we had temporarily, and they were like, "Fine, you got any of those? We're good." If you had something else in here that was different, say like a Heil, right? Which I haven't had a chance to try because I don't have any Heils. I don't have a budget I can't just buy them. But I bet you if I put a Heil on one or two, the bass or even a drum set, we'd have people going, "Ooh, that's a nice sound."
But by the way, I'm not affiliated in any way with Peluso mics. They were just kind enough to talk to me. They didn't give me a mic to try or play with or anything like that. I just really enjoyed meeting them and hearing about their expertise. One thing that we're going to do in the show notes, we're going to put links to a couple of videos. They're associated, by the way, I should mention, a couple of wonderful people with a company called BEEHiVE Productions. And this would be Jeff Older and also Susan Bibeau. And wonderful people helped me with the shooting of that interview. And their videos tend to show the microphones and the performer. They tend to do a lot of Americana music and folk music. They go to all the folk festivals and shoot those. So I'm going to put some links in there. You can, first of all, enjoy some nice music, great acoustic music. If that's your thing, it's just terrific. And you can see the mics in action recording those. Chris, we're running out of time, and I want to remind folks one more time quickly, send us an email, thisweekinradiotech@gmail.com, thisweekinradiotech@gmail.com. We're going to hear from our last sponsor, Lawo, and we'll be right back with a final word from Chris and our giveaway to give away this. Send me an email, thisweekinradiotech@gmail.com, and this microphone and the kit that it comes with will all be yours. We'll be right back.
There has probably never been a better time in history to buy a new radio mixing console. Today's consoles are more sophisticated than ever, with more features and functions than you can shake a stick at. But have you noticed how complicated they are? There's a sea of knobs and switches and displays and buttons. Some of them look like you might need a pilot's license to do your show. Well, a board doesn't have to be complicated to be powerful. Just look at the new Ruby mixing surface from Lawo. The first thing you notice is how smooth and streamlined it is. Ruby has lots of cool tech, but what it doesn't have is that confusing ocean of buttons that clutter things up. Now, we all know that there are some console features the jock only uses once in a while. So why dedicate controls to them? Ruby fixes this problem by moving those once-in-a-blue-moon controls to a touch-sensitive, customizable GUI that happily shares screen space with your other studio software, helping you fight control room clutter. Thanks to this design innovation, talent that use Ruby produce smoother shows with less errors. Controls that are used the most fall naturally to hand, while functions that rarely need adjustment are easily controlled with just a couple of clicks in the context-sensitive GUI. And Ruby has cool features you won't find on other boards, like Auto Mix, an intelligent gain writing function that guarantees the perfect mix for multi-mic morning shows and call-in segments. Dual mode snapshots that instantly switch the motorized faders between on-air and production modes, and enough DSP and I/O options to make even your pro sound pals green with envy. And because quality is as important to Lawo as it is to you, every console is proudly built to fanatically precise standards at Lawo's own factory in Germany. If you're ready to declutter your control room, do yourself a favor. Check out the new Ruby and the other cool Lawo radio tech at www.lawo.com/TWiRT.
Thanks a lot to Lawo for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. I do appreciate their sponsorship and all of our sponsors. Be sure you visit them. All right. Thank you. All right, we're going to do our giveaway here. Chris, this has been fun. Microphones for some people, they make you smile, make you happy to talk about microphones, especially when you got I didn't realize how many I had. Did you realize how many you have in those boxes?
Oh, yeah. That's only 3 of the 6 boxes we have.
Oh, gee. Oh my goodness. And of course, New York City is a recording mecca. Nashville is a recording mecca. I mean, within 5 miles of where I sit, there must be thousands of microphones, and I mean some expensive ones. Probably the same for you too, right?
Oh, yes. Just up the block is the Performance Arts Center. So I know they have some serious microphones there. Their audio guy is a retired guy from the city, I believe, replacing the city. And just across the river, there's a couple of production houses where, it's got some expensive mics. But remember, the microphone doesn't have to be expensive to be great. You need to know how to use it. Otherwise, you could have a $10,000 microphone sound like a $5 Piezo from a computer store.
There is that. You're right. And we're giving away a microphone that is not expensive. I don't know if you'd call it sounding great, but it certainly sounds adequate. I've recorded a whole book for Audible on a microphone, and not this exact model, but actually the little brother to this, the BM700. This is, again, the BM8000, and we're going to give that away. Chris, I'm going to need a randomized number from you between 1 and 34. 1 and 34. Can you think of a number and toss it out to me?
23.
23. All right. Hang on. Let's see. If you can provide the dum, 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 dum. 1, 2, 3. I got all the list of all the people who liked our show today, and I'm counting till I get to
if Wally or David or Dave are on their list, you got to take them off. I'm only kidding, guys.
Hang on. I'm still okay. All right.
They know who they are.
All right. Here we go. I got 2 places I can bring this up. Let me bring it up over here. All right. The 23rd person, and this is not necessarily in order of that with which they registered. I just took snapshots of all the registrations during that commercial break and put them all up. And I just counted that down through them. This is both from thisweekinradiotech@gmail.com and also from the people who liked this episode of the show on Facebook, from either guys from Queens Network, my personal page, or the TWiRT page on Facebook. So all those sources. Here we go. The 23rd one is Kevin Dilworth. Kevin Dilworth. Congratulations. He actually wrote us something here. Let's see. Hi, guys. Regular listener viewer. Have built 2 radio stations for high schools and am beginning to work on a podcast for students in medical school. A new microphone would be a great addition. Thanks for putting me in the raffle. Okay. All right. Kevin Dilworth. And, thank you very much, Kevin. We will be in touch. Or maybe you'll be right back in touch. Hey, that was me. I won. So thanks a lot. We're going to give that away. You know what? I've got a couple more microphones to give away in future episodes. So how about that? Chris, this has been fun. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I said excellent. And, that microphone, even though it may be on the inexpensive side, if it works for Audible, for the work you did, that means it's a great vocal mic and then something to consider.
Yeah, it is. Thanks again to my friends at BEEHiVE Productions. This is Susan and Jeff. They were just awesome in helping me out. Thanks to John Peluso and also to Chris Newitt. Go to PelusoMicrophoneLab.com and watch for the show notes to come out on YouTube and here on Facebook, because I'm going to have links. And of course on our page, thisweekinradiotech.com, and also gfqnetwork.com. I'm going to have links to some videos where the Peluso mics are in use. And there you go. Hey, Chris, I should link to some things that you've done there at your performance studio too.
Yeah, you can just do the YouTube search, WBGO.
There you go, yeah.
Videos, and that's you'll see them pop up, and you'll see all the stuff we do. And many of the shots, you'll see the microphones very clearly in the camera shots. You'll get an idea of it. Good. You'll hear what it sounds like. So yeah.
Hey, next week, Chris, we've got a real treat. We're going to be in a broadcast audio processing lab. All right. Uh-oh. This is where some serious code is made. And the code begins as ideas. And then typically it'll go into MATLAB, but it may or may not. And so these ideas, and you know what? I think like a lot of other ideas, some of them just fall on the cutting room floor because they just don't work out. And other ideas go, hey, they rise to the top because this is a great idea for making audio sound better. We're going to be talking in his lab with Frank Foti next Thursday. How about that?
Ooh, we're pulling back the black curtain. Or it'll be just a black screen and we can only hear him because you can't see what he's doing because that's just not allowed.
Not everybody gets to go in his lab, and I don't know if I'll have to kiss the ring or not. We'll see.
It's one thing. Audio processing is going to be one of the most subjective parts of the business you could be involved in, and I have to applaud Frank and Bob Orban, the two titans of the industry, along with Jim Solmich and a few others that over the years, but the two titans that everybody has always looked up to, tried to mimic. And Frank and Bob know these stories. I mean, I'm not speaking out of school, but I have to say, when you look at some of the things they've done and how they approach it, it reminds me of watching like Apollo 13, the movie, and the way they approach the round and square box. Or, if you watch the documentaries of the history of the Apollo programs and how they had to create things because it didn't exist. Look back in the early papers of both of those gentlemen and what they did and how they reported it, what they wrote about in their discussions. And you will hear some things that you'll be like, well, wait a minute, did that ever exist? That didn't exist before. Or, yeah, it did exist as discrete components on a table, but nobody really thought to put them together. Just saying, you got to really appreciate some of the work over the years, and any opportunity you have at NAB to talk with them, or if they have to be passing through your particular market and you hear about it, it's worth it. It's like Steve Lampin from Belden. You just gotta meet up with them.
And interestingly, at every company, there are probably some unsung heroes. At my employer, TELUS Alliance, of course, there's Frank Foti, and everybody knows him and sees Frank.
Yeah, Corny. I love how Corny.
There's Corny, and then there's actually one of our coders. He's the guy that does a lot of the actual coding. A guy named Rob Dye. Rob has some pretty interesting ideas on coding. Then there's Mark Manolio, who is a support guy. But Mark hears what people want to do, and he engineers for several stations himself. And I know other companies have this as well. Plus, then you've got people who are good processing coders in their own right, like Leif Clayson and Hans von Zutphen. Both have been on our show. But we're going to go kiss the ring next week with Frank Foti in his lab. It's going to be awesome.
That's great. I look forward to
it. Me too. Frank does like to talk, and so he'll there may not be much for you or me to do. We're just going to ask him a question and let him go.
Quite all right. Don't worry. I mean, I've had the pleasure of working with many of his contemporaries here in the New York market, and it's an absolute pleasure and treat. Any opportunity I have to hear him talk or be in the same room, and I know it sounds like I'm kissing up, but I'm serious. He can be more down to earth and no matter of frank about things. I mean, he literally reminds me of people I grew up with in Brooklyn. It's like, this is the way it is, kid. Understand it, take it, suck it up, or get out. You can't beat that.
Having worked for Frank's company coming on 19 years now. It's been 19 years. Frank loves audio and Frank loves people. There's no doubt about that. So it's going to be good.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. Yeah. Kevin Dilworth, again, congratulations to Kevin. He won this microphone. We'll be shipping it out to you, but we'll be in touch, Kevin. And on future episodes, we'll do some more giveaways. Hey, we got to go. Chris, thank you so much for being along.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a pleasure. I had a good time.
And thanks for the tour of your microphone cases. All right, and thanks.
More fun, you get to hear them.
I want to also thank Suncast, our producer. He had a good time today. And thanks to Andrew Zarian, the founder of the GFQ Network. We got to go. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.